Feeling that is marketed to us that's easy to buy into, which is that normal is what you're used to. You're used to your sister maybe dating white men, but then as she asked you, well then why were you surprised? Well, because it was black men. And then on from there, to use the word normal is a red flag in a good way, because that's another way you can learn what do I consider to be normal. And it's not to criticize you, but to start asking yourself questions like I did this year. Yeah. And why all of a sudden was I upset about Trump when there's been people upset in our country for hundreds and hundreds of years that we have not been listening to. And I just felt like, not that you needed help, but that, that you're not alone, and that there are other people who are listening and learning, and who are on a path to understanding that. And there are going to be some black people, I know, that we talked about, who are beyond, and they don't want our help, and they're fed up, and they're angry, and they're already ahead, and they're like, well, where have y'all been? And then there's some that know that maybe here in Pensacola even, we do need each other. But it's not going to be friendly and kumbaya. It's going to be hard, and asking how was I raised, and how are you raised? And what do you think is normal?
Okay, I'm gonna stop you there. She wants to make an announcement real quick.
There are 4 cars that are at risk out there of being towed. One of them is a blue Saturn.
A blue Saturn.
One of them is a One of them is a Honda.
A Honda.
One of them, and then 2 of them are trucks. One is Chevrolet, one of Ford.
A GM truck.
They both are sort of dark. I can't really tell if they're black or gray or what they are.
Is it behind the trolley?
It's that parking lot next door that I wrote not to park in. It's got all kinds of, the guy next door is very...
If you went in on a diagonal, you need to move your car. I think it's the one that's all the spots are diagonal. If you didn't go in straight on the pay to park, move your car.
Yeah. If you're on the street, you're okay. Yeah. If you're on the street, you're fine.
So I want to thank you, Julie. I want to go back to what this sister said here to you. This is the place for critique. So I'm not going to let you off the hook for critique, because that's how the only way that you do it is you push through. If I see a train coming your way, I'm going to say, sister, get off the track. So, I mean, if I don't say something, then that's on me. So I mean, we have to. So and I don't think that you need to be rescued. So I don't think that's what you're doing. But I don't think that you need to be rescued. I think that you're having a conversation. So take the feedback, and what they say, eat the meat, throw out the bone. Get the part that you can use, and then throw the rest out, and then go get some more meat from somebody else, because you're gonna get it all in here. But your presence makes me know that you want to learn. So, so don't get discounted. Don't get dissuaded from doing that. But because what you said some crazy stuff in there, and so you got to just face it and then move on. So it's one over here and then over here. Yes, ma'am. You stand up for me.
What I found interesting about your story was when you said that your sister or people in your family have brought home other people, and I think you said maybe Latino, and you named it. So then I was confused about if that's the trend or the tendency, then why the surprise because the person was black?
It was sounding like she was going for more of the, she'd gotten burnt with some guys from Puerto Rico, and she sounded like she was going to date people, try something else, and I guess that's why I was surprised that, and it may be more of a relationship problem with me and my sister, that she didn't tell any of us, and none of us knew. But that's why I was wondering, is it the way things are changing now? Are saying race now?
We've been saying race forever. So, I mean, half of the reason I can find some articles up until, Jamin, correct me on this, up until the 1950s, they had a C for colored or an M for mulatto. So in terms of that, that's the way you find a whole bunch of stuff. You put in colored, Negro, Afro. So that's the way. I mean, we've been doing that a long time. So that's the label is not the issue. It's not the label is not the issue. So because I call you, you know, giraffe, that doesn't make you a giraffe. So the label is not the issue. That's not the point of this deal. That's just Robin saying racist at home, revolutionary in the street. You can put whatever you want to up there. You're a giraffe at home and a guinea pig in the street. It doesn't matter. It's just you're doing something different at home than you know, you're reporting something different at home than you are in the street. That's and I just want to make sure we move on from this sister. I think we kind of made the point enough. Yes, ma'am. And then I think there's somebody over here.
Yeah, I was just gonna say real quick.
Can you stand up for me?
A lot of people don't take into court, you know, when you have like maybe national disasters, 9/11, people don't think about racism during that time. So I don't see how hard it is to leave that stuff behind doing your normal everyday. You know?
So say that, I missed your point, so say that again.
During times of like disasters or hurricanes,
Mhm.
people don't think about racism because everybody, you know, draws in together to help each other out. But when everybody goes back to the, you know, regular life, that's when we have these issues. So I'm just saying, I think that it's not as serious as we make it.
I think it is pretty serious. I mean, I think that's why we're having, I think it manifests itself in a whole bunch of ways, and I would surmise that, so I get your point. I'll say this real quick. We have a neighbor, very, very, very dear neighbor, and for the longest time, he called one of our other neighbors colored. He goes, the colored woman. I always say, you mean Miss Williams? So the colored woman, you know, they were neighbors like long before, you know, we were neighbors, and then we had Hurricane Ivan. And so he was like, oh my Lord, Jesus this, and he was like, oh, you know, just lovey-dovey, and Robbie, you need anything, and all of this. I was like, oh my God, this is, you know, this is cool. So we were standing in his yard. He is just when I say the best, one of the best neighbors. We asked him for something, he's like, okay, let me see what you need, and he's, you know, got all the tools and all of that. So we were standing in his yard, and the neighbor behind us had died, and so the children the house was in probate, and so it was vacant for a bit, and so finally, like 2 years ago, they had some renters in there. So we were standing in the yard, and we hadn't seen the renters, so we were standing there and just talking, and then here comes the dog by, like, oh, neighbors have a dog, beautiful German Shepherd dog. It's like, oh, okay, cool, and so here comes the neighbor, and he goes, I'm sure glad they're white. That's all I could do, y'all. I had to go home. I mean, really, I couldn't do nothing else. I'm like, you know, this is my neighbor. I love him, and so I just, you know, you just keep plugging along and making it happen and making it good and making it work. But you want to say something, sister?
Yes.
Stand up for me.
This is such a complex issue, so I appreciate everyone, you know, talking about this tonight. And you're telling us that we have to start putting the mirror to ourselves, which I completely agree with, and start at the individual level. But once we do, or when we do that, and we're living individually in the, you know, all together in this, where there is systemic racism and institutionalized racism, and the country is, you know, was founded on the backs of slaves and through, you know, attempted genocide of the indigenous people. Once we do that, once we put the mirror to ourselves, and here we are, we're in this space, and it's these issues that we're dealing with. What do we do? Like, I think that's why I'm so overwhelmed and just feel lost, or not knowing where to go or how to start once you put the mirror up to yourself, then you look around the world and you see you have to exist in this system. Then what do we, like, how do we move forward?
Yeah, I'm so glad I'm not a psychologist, so whatever I say, you know, you can't sue me for $125 for it. The Sharon Wiley sent a note the other day. She sent those pebbles. Y'all get those. She sent those pebbles, and I don't remember who said this. What's the brother name? Einstein. I think she said Einstein said this. She said, I think it was Einstein. Go out as far as you can, and then start there. And I had that process that. I mean, I was on the bathroom like for 2 hours thinking, like, what the? I sent her a note back. Like, girl, Gurrll, girl. I was like, oh, I got to think about it. She's like, yeah, I had to think about this one too. go out as far as you can and then start there. And then come back and ask that question. Right? So just do the work. Do the work, do the work. And so if I have you sister doing it, you brother doing it, the next, it will change themselves. Don't come back in 1,000 years and say, Robin, you were right. And I promise you, you're going to come back in 1,000 years and say, Robin, you were right. So you go out as far as you can and then start. That's what it's to me, it is, it's heavy and it's deep, but it ain't complicated. It's really not. I mean, we do things, we do them so much that we start believing it. You know, that we start believing our own craziness. You know, I need this to do this. I started this thing, this little person, I made my husband smell my hair. I started this thing, I read this thing about in part because of this sister here, about the stuff that we put in our bodies. And so we had some family challenges the last few years, and so I said, you know, what can I do differently to kind of do some health things? And one of the things, I read this article about the stuff that we put in our bodies and on our bodies. And so one of the things said, well, you don't need shampoo and conditioner. I was like, what the? You know, shampoo, rinse, repeat, right? I mean, we all grew up on that, right? Pearl, y'all remember, Pearl, okay. And so this artist is like, well, what, your hair has everything it already needs. So it's this thing called sebum. I ain't a biologist, now I'm playing one on TV, but this thing called sebum, this oil is already in your hair. And so if only you take care of that and massage it and work that, then your hair makes what it needs. And so I didn't wash my hair, well, no, I don't say that. I haven't shampooed or conditioned my hair since June.
Me too.
I love you even more.
What? 628, yes.
I think Tom and my husband are brothers. My husband and mine are brothers. So it's as my pastor says, we have everything we already need. So we don't have to go and get all of this other stuff, look outside, as we have everything that we already need. So the deal is are you big and bad and bold enough to do it? So you don't have to go and form a group to do it. This is beautiful. You don't have to do that. You don't have to change the educational system to do that. You don't have to, tell people we shall overcome. You just have to put the mirror up and do it and start with yourself and figure out what are you doing, what is that? I had it up there before, not Claude McKay, Paul Lawrence Dunbar, we wear the mask. I mean, every day, that's what the two masks up there represent. Every day we put on this mask and go out and, call it what you want. Call it makeup, call it clothes, call it whatever you want to. Social things, cultural things that we put on and then go out to face this world. When we have everything, our bodies have everything that it needs. Commercial for East Hill Edible Garden right there. Yes, ma'am.
I want to talk about the difficulty of standing up about the institution of it and the individual. I was raised hardcore preacher family. We moved to Colorado. Life was very different than South Georgia. So my mom gave me rose-colored glasses. Let me date who I wanted. True, it was all in church. So our dates were walking down, aisles and pews and stuff. So it wasn't really going anywhere. Get to the South and it was a whole different game. Grow up, get married, and my husband is trying to teach me how to be a person because I was raised in this very conservative mindset. So my grandma and my grandpa get comfortable, they get okay with the idea that I'm married. My grandpa takes my husband out to the garage to play some pool. I had been shielded from a lot of what my grandfather said. I didn't know this. And the hard truth was my husband comes to me and says, did you know that your grandfather gives racist names to all of the balls? Every single one of them. And it was a moment of suddenly everything clicked in my head. All the little jokes, all the little things suddenly came pouring down at once. And I realized it wasn't innocent. It was conditioning. All the times I was sat in front of the TV, all the times I was presented with certain, oh, it's just a joke. And you're a preacher. So then later on, I quit going to church, but my mom calls me one day and informs me that my grandpa called to chastise her. I said, what for? Well, he says I didn't go to church. But you did, you told me you did. I didn't go to proper church. Because in this deep small town, they still have the black congregation and the white congregation. I am not an aggressive person, despite my appearance, I'm not. So when my grandfather brings it up to me and he finally gets bold enough, it's that strength to stand up despite how I've been conditioned to treat men in my family and say no. You're not going to make those jokes, not just because I don't want to hear it, but because it's not okay. You've already presented to my husband, which means you're doing it in front of my children, and it's not okay. And when my grandfather passed away, rest him, my grandmother says, did you know he was a published author? Really? That's amazing. I would like to see it. The first line in it is about how gays are bad, and I just closed the book and slid it back and said, I don't want to read anymore. I wasn't going to, even in a state of mourning, give in to that anymore. Because it's those little things that build up. Just because it's your family, because it's the patriarch of the family, you have to put your foot down at some point. And my mother-in-law and I were talking about this. Sitting right here is the next generation. I am raising that next generation. They are watching everything we're doing. Those conversations we have, when our friends make those jokes around us, no, it's not funny. I don't care if it's just a joke. Whether it's about race, whatever, it's not funny. So those were some of those hard truths that I had to deal with where it hit me all at once. Where when I was a kid, when I was in middle school, I didn't understand the fact that I had dated black guys, got people to stand up and walk away from my table. I didn't understand. And they had the normal names, Frederick, Russell. They didn't have fancy names. They were the football players. They were the elite ones, the ones that your mom wanted you to date. So when I moved to the South, it didn't make sense to me why I was ostracized. So those are the little things, the little bits of conversation, what you say in the privacy of your home around your children, what your grandparents are saying, whatever. Just take that stand. It's a start.